Hi. Hello. Okay, so new beer today. This is Friend of the Devil. It is a 9% non Abbey Belgian beer. Just for edification, not necessarily communication to customers. Break down kind of the style of this beer. So within Belgian beers, of which we've had a few on, I'll kind of remind you, we've had like the La Petite beer, which was a Belgian table beer. Uh, the we've had First Tracks was a Belgian double. Am I missing any that we've had here? Right, the Zatar Saison, which is also a kind of Wallonian Franco-Belgian beer. Yeah, otherwise known as farmhouse ale. Um, right. So if you take those that we've had on, the one that we've had that's like what most people think of when they think of Belgian beers would be like the Belgian double. So you've got that entire vein of Belgians, which is like single, double, triple, quad. Those beers are coming out of, we call them abbey ales because they're coming out of monasteries. This is like a very old form of brewing, and basically the monks of the monasteries in Belgium learned the trade of brewing beer long ago, and that kind of kept the monastery in business. Food on the table, robes on the monks, whatever you need business wise to keep a monastery going. I don't know. Never run a monastery before. Although I wouldn't be opposed to it. Kind of sounds nice. Um, the so those not to digress too much, but the single, double, triple, quad is a reference kind of to the range of ABV that those beers were falling under. So like that double that we had on, I think was around like 5 or 6%. We're gonna have a triple on soon. That's after this beer, so that's around like 7, 8%. Okay, so you need to know all that to know that this beer has nothing to do with that whatsoever, very purposefully. So while you've got this long tradition in Belgium of these abbey ales, you've got kind of a counterculture tradition of it, which is non-abbey ales or non-religious ales or secular ales. So this the category in which this beer falls under is Belgian Golden Strong. These are guys who were like they saw what the Belgian monks were doing with the triples and even the quads, and they're like, we also want a high ABV beer that's not that's distinctly different from that kind of religious thing. So there's a note of irreverence to this. The most famous commercial example of a Belgian Golden Strong Ale is called Duvel. Maybe you've heard of that before. Uh, Duvel translates to devil, so it was so named to just like have that contrast to the religious aspect of it. Okay, so now that you have all of that in-depth but ultimately perhaps useless beer knowledge, uh, I'll kind of like talk about the thinking behind this. So obviously, this one's called "Friend of the Devil," right? Nice little Grateful Dead tie-in to anybody who's a fan. And this is kind of a special one because the alcohol, which is substantial at 9%, is like really hidden in it. You'll see when you taste in a second. It does not taste like a 9% beer, and that's kind of the magic of it. So you might get folks having a couple of these, and people might get a little sloppy, and yeah, fair warning there. This is like a type of like alcohol wise. This is like what I'd call a creeper. All of a sudden, you got like 2, 3. It hasn't hit you yet, and then all of a sudden, like it really hits you. For that reason, people who love high ABV stuff are big fans of this beer. So yeah, so let's give it a whiff, give it a taste, and see what you're getting out of it. What you think about it. Crispy. Okay. Okay. This is my new beer. It's a strong endorsement. Love that. Do you want to expand on what you mean by crispy? Yeah, so maybe like refreshing and then the back end's a little boozy, so you can feel it. I mean, it would be a problem if it wasn't in the Tiku glass at whatever 9%, right? But okay, great. What else?
With 9%, I thought it was going to be a lot like punchier, but it's smoother than I thought. Like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the magic of this one. Yeah, I'd add to that there's a lot of yeast character in this, which we've talked about this before. Like, it's maybe not the most appealing thing to be like, oh, this is a really yeasty beer. Like you can say that it's got a lot of fermentation character. That's kind of how I put it in the beer description. That being said, I don't think that that's also like a super appealing description of it, but it's a little more palatable. Um, One thing that we do for this is we bring in special yeast in order to ferment this beer. So you can definitely point to that, especially when from time to time we do have people who are like, why am I getting 2 ounces less beer? This is in a Tiku glass. Like, it shouldn't be. Be like, well, you got this one's a little bit easier because you have the alcohol on it. That usually explains it away for people. But also that we like bring in special ingredients in order to make this beer for people. But yeah, I mean, it's really, this beer is all about the yeast character. There's not a lot to hide behind. Like, if you think about the ingredients in beer, the malt, the hops, the water, the yeast, like the most prominent thing in this beer is definitely the yeast. Like, you're not getting a lot of malt. You're definitely not getting much hops at all. So yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about this guy. Unless you have any questions or comments. Fruity and citrusy? Nice. Yeah. If what?
I think it'll be really good with food.
Excellent. Okay, so for those who didn't hear, that it'll be really, really good with food, which is a great selling point. And you might think about also like exactly what dishes we have that would pair well with this. That's it's maybe something that we're gonna like put on the menu even in the future, but you can communicate that verbally to the customer, starting as soon as today. Um, Make it your own a little bit too. Like, think about like a good food and beer pairing. Um, there's a whole art in pairing food and beer. And while you're talking about pairing food and beer, you might remind people that we do have a beer dinner coming up, and they should buy their tickets before they're sold out. I don't know. Gotta check. But we should sell more than we've sold.
I was just curious.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. See you at the next beer.